You've tuned in to Books, Business, and Beyond, the show that teaches you how to maximize your income from your book to create the lifestyle you want. Now here's your host, the international publishing expert who loves green smoothies and reading inspirational thriller novels, Kristen, the Book Ninja Eckstein, and her partner in success, Shelley Hitz.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Books, Business, and Beyond. This is your host, Kristen Joy, with my co-host, Shelley Hitz, who totally rocks. Say hi, Shelley.
Hey everyone.
And today's guest, we have Brent Parkhill, who happens to be one of my personal BFF's husband. Let's just say she married him because he's hot and smart, right?
That, and I can pick up heavy things.
And that's all in jest because he is a personal trainer who specializes in unique body situations. Like for those of you who know me well, know that from the waist down, I have deformation issues with my bones. And he actually has been working with me, sort of, because I've been slacking. But he's supposed to be working with me when I let him to help my situation so I can strengthen my muscles and stuff, because I sit all day. You know, we're writers and we tend to sit in front of the computer all day. So I'd just like to start just talking with you, Brent, about what you would recommend for those of us who sit all day so we can not only stay in shape, but just plain feel better, have more energy, because it's not really about losing weight as much as it's about being able to have the mental focus and clarity to get our goals done, which we can't do if we're, at least I can't do, if I'm sitting in one spot for hours on end.
You're exactly right, Kristen. Well, first things first, I am well aware of having to plop down in a chair and do your work as internet marketers and authors and you know, writing is your livelihood and you're in front of the computer. The caveat is you're sitting for such long periods of time that things become tight, and in physiological terms it's called dysfunctional. So the biggest thing, I know, good word, right?
We are so dysfunctional.
But the biggest thing is just getting up every once in a while and letting your body get out of that shortened situation where you're sitting and the hip flexors are tight, your low back usually is rounded a little bit. Typically, I work with a lot of corporate professionals, and what happens is they all have good intentions of sitting up straight and making sure that as a matter of fact, I see Kristen out of the corner of my eye kind of straighten up here.
I see that he's going to be watching my posture.
Right.
For those of you who don't know, when we're recording this, I'm actually staying at Brent and Felicia's house.
Yes.
So he's actually seriously looking at me right now, critiquing me.
And I actually caught her out of the side of my side view, kind of straightening up. So. But what happens is you get so engrossed in what you're doing, and you slowly lean into the computer, and the neck starts to protract, and you get this long neck that it's just the way that people do it. Unless someone is there telling them to straighten up, it typically is going to lead to some dysfunctions in the neck and the upper back, and then of course the lower back and hips.
And how does that affect their productivity?
So productivity, that's a great question. The productivity is, I would say, is greatly thrown off, because that in and of itself, when the body is tight and dysfunctional like that, it leads to stress. You may not feel it, you may not sense it, but when the body is thrown off, it is a stressor, and you may get tired quicker. You may not be as productive as far as thinking and mentally clear. And it's, generally speaking, due to postural situations when you sit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why writers aren't so productive is because they're not sitting.
They're not sitting
straight.
right. Yes. Right.
And just a personal story, when I switched careers, I was a physical therapist, and I actually specialized in ergonomics. So I believe in everything that you're saying, Brent, and I would teach it all the time. But to actually do it myself was a different thing. And when I changed careers and I was sitting at a desk all day instead of up and down with patients and all of that, I was really hard on my body, and I was not using correct posture. My setup of my computer was not good, and I developed overuse injuries, and it was horrible. I had to take a complete month off. I could not use my arms. So when Brent says it can lead to dysfunction, he is so true, and I, of all people, should have known better. But, it happened to me as well. And so now I'm a lot more aware of my sitting, and it's still hard. I mean, we still sit all day, and you're so right. When I get into a project, I start leaning forward, and I get into that bad posture. And so I would love to hear some of the tips that you have for us to help, remind ourselves, and especially when we're so focused on what we're doing.
Right. It's a focus. And when I talk to anybody about fitness or performance training or whatever, specifically, we talk about what kind of sacrifices are you going to make to get to where you want to go. So if it is increasing productivity in business and you sit all day, then you have to be proactive about doing these things, whatever works for you, whether it's putting a pop-up on your computer, which I presume would work very quite well in a situation of an author or anybody that's in front of a computer. It could be the new
Apple Watch.
Yeah, the watches and the.
He's grabbing his wrist.
I'm trying to remember what all those.
I'm like, how did you know that, Kristen?
Right, the Apple Watches or the. It's the ones just strictly for exercise. What are they called? Fitbit. Yeah, those things. I'm not a big advocate of those, probably because I'm technologically not not quite there. I kind of I use my own body as a gauge, but if you need to put a vibration timer on that thing and have it vibrate, every so often to get you to understand. Now, straighten up. Don't lean forward. Stand up. Do the things that are going to be that are going to help you be more productive and take away the stressors of the shortened muscles and lengthened dysfunctional muscles. So
what's something that while people are sitting there and they get that pop-up reminder, what's something they can physically do when they stand up to help stretch those muscles back out?
So one thing that I want to make abundantly clear is more times than not, individuals that feel tight want to stand up and stretch. In my opinion, that's not the best course of action. The body is trying to stabilize in a certain position, and if the stabilization is off, that leads to the dysfunction. So in my opinion, stabilization is far and away greater than what people would deem flexibility, being flexible. Sometimes muscles are already lengthened too much, but they feel tight because they're not doing enough work, but they're being pulled enough so that they want to kind of revert back to where they're supposed to be. So they're tight, but they're long. So trying to stretch a lengthened muscle already that's dysfunctional kind of defeats the purpose of stretching, right?
So when you talk about stabilization, for those out there that might not understand what that means, what would that mean for them when they take that break?
Right.
What kind of exercise could
they
do?
A quick stabilization drill would be through your trunk or through let's for real lay terms, from your umbilical, your belly button, all the way through to your low back. There's a lot of muscles there that have stabilization purpose. Abdominals, deep abdominal muscles, low back muscles, muscles in your hips. So one good thing to do would be I'm not advocating yoga breathing, but it's called diaphragmatic breathing. So your belly kind of rises a little bit. So you almost breathe, as you breathe in, you push your belly out. That, if you've ever seen a baby sleep, or someone, really adults too, but you see the belly kind of rise and fall, that's diaphragmatic breathing. A lot of stabilization occurs then. So breathe out or breathe in and your stomach comes out, kind of inflates, and then you brace, but you don't brace to the point where you're holding your breath. what that does in effect is it straightens you out pretty quickly. The enhancement that occurs just by virtue of doing that has a lot of recourse in your upper back and your neck. So just sitting up in that position should lengthen the thoracic spine, which is basically your rib cage. All too often, that's what gets shortened down because you kind of slouch forward and the chest kind of comes down and the rib cage kind of folds over. So just taking a deep breathing. Breathing is
pushing your stomach up
absolutely. Breathing is a huge component of anything that we do in exercise, and can have major benefits just sitting or standing.
So really, if you practice breathing like that enough, it could become just a habit and become natural. Like, for example, I learned how to breathe like that in voice lessons from when I was a little kid.
Exactly.
And that's how I always breathe, but I never really consciously think about it because it's become a habit. So if you start consciously thinking about
it. You hit the nail right on the head. It's consciously. If you make certain that you're making a conscious effort and to do these things, you will be a lot better off in the chair. Now, certainly you need to stand up, so even better would be to stand up and do these breathing drills. If that's too difficult, then you lay down on the floor to make sure that your back is staying flat to the ground and do those. I have lots of clients that I have put just something like a book. For authors, it'd be great. Put a book or something on your belly, lay down on the ground, flat, head back of the head laying on the floor, not pulling your chin towards the ceiling, but almost taking the back of your head and pushing it back against the floor. I like to have my clients pull their feet so that they're flat and their knees are bent. That takes some of the rounding away from the low back that is usually very prevalent in corporate America, and also people that sit. Put the book right on their stomach and have them try to push it away from themselves. So you can see the book raising and lowering just by virtue of them breathing correctly. More times than not, when they first start this drill, they take big breaths through their chest and through their really upper chest and shoulders. And that, again, can lead to major dysfunctions when you're trying to posturally be more aware.
So I like the visual of being able to see the book rise and fall. That way you know you're breathing correctly.
You know you're breathing correctly, exactly.
And to lay down on the floor, it's just like a stress relief, and you just lay there for a few seconds or a few minutes and take the gravity off of your neck and your back and all of that. And you can just enjoy a minute. Like I work at home, so it would just be easy for me just to, go over and lay on my floor. Now, if somebody's working in an office, that might be different. But
exactly, yeah, office. I mean, it'd be a little bit, but here's my argument to that, Shelley. If it's important enough to somebody, they will find a time and a place to do that. It doesn't have to be maybe as often as someone that's working from home, but certainly if it's important enough for them to be able to change and to be able to feel better, that's the sacrifice that needs to be made.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
He's looking at me like, is it important enough for you yet?
Yeah.
Well, believe me, when you have to take a month off of work and you cannot work because you have pain in your arms and numbness and tingling, it becomes important enough.
That's right.
And so I know my body breaks down faster than most people's, but I really want to just emphasize this to authors. When you are doing a lot of computer work, or if you have a second job and you're at the computer and then you come home and you're at the computer, these things that Brent is telling us, they are just key. It is so important because, you do not want to disrupt your flow or get to a point where you can't work like I did. So I totally understand where you're coming from, Brent. And sometimes you do have to reach that breaking point where, okay, it's worth it to me now.
Right, exactly, it is worth it. And I think many people assume when they think exercise, they think losing weight and jumping on a treadmill and going through crazy the Biggest Loser workouts, that kind of thing. This is exercise really the intention of exercise wasn't necessarily for weight loss. That's just a byproduct of doing the things that your body enjoys doing. Um, this takes it to another level that's actually lower. Um, Individuals need to learn how to reproduce um, good feelings in the body and learning how to breathe. I can't tell you how important the breathing drills are. I mean, that's just, it's a key component in everything that I teach.
So you would say if they don't do anything else, at least start
Just
there.
breathe. I mean, that's just a basic. I mean, it's
Don't
functional.
stop breathing,
Right? Don't
everybody.
stop breathing. Breathe through and it's for many individuals to hear what I'm talking about is kind of, it's a little bit hard to imagine how to position the body in order to facilitate this good breathing. So it's videos will be there. People can look at different breathing drills and different websites and that to be able to understand the pattern,
Well,
how to pattern it.
Speaking of different websites, nice segue. He's
Yeah.
giving me the thumbs up.
Yes.
You can go to booksbusinessandbeyond.com/Brent to find out more about Brent and what he does. And I'd also like you to give us one exercise that's super simple that even somebody that has trouble walking would be able to do when they stand up, just to get their body moving again in some way, shape, or form.
Are we talking moving or static here, Kristen?
Well, if I've been sitting for 4 hours and I forgot to get up,
Whoa.
I've been breathing though. I've been breathing.
Okay.
But after that, like, what should I do and what should I avoid doing? Because so many people might, like, for instance, I might hop in my car and go to karate and do karate for 2 hours straight.
Yeah.
Maybe not a good idea.
Not without a proper warm up. No.
Yeah.
A real easy thing is just to get up from your desk, do a couple of those breathing drills standing up to kind of get the body to come back to normal again, and then walk
Just walk.
back and forth, walk back and forth. Now and back pedal back, doesn't have to be real fast, and then do some side steps, almost like shuffling, but you're just walking laterally. Does that make sense?
Well, that makes sense because I see your hands moving. Does
Right.
that make
So
sense to you, Shelley?
It does. I mean, just to get up, to move, to walk forward and backward and then side to side, just kind of get that blood flow.
Well, as you know, Shelley, our bodies are designed to move in several different planes of movement. And just walking back and forth, that's just one plane of movement. So we need to get in the front and backwards movements, the lateral movements, and even some rotational movements. I'm hesitant to recommend real aggressive rotation work for many people, but there needs to be some rotation in the torso,
Turning side
side to side. But again, we're trying to turn through our rib cage. Our hips are going to rotate with us, but if we can statically hold our hips and not turn very aggressively because we don't want to shear our low back, but just maybe a 10% turn to one side and a 10% turn to the other, just to get that rotational movement, and then start working the hips in with it. Those would be very simple exercises that someone could do at their desk after standing up.
Anybody could do these. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have Brent on the show, is because he really believes in meeting people where they're at and not taking, I mean, he's not the physical trainer you're going to go into the gym and be instantly doing like 50 pull-ups and then like 100 push-ups. And
No.
he actually looked at me walk back and forth and side to side, held my legs up in different positions to see how flexible I was versus how lengthened my muscles were versus how whatever.
How stable you were.
How stable I was, which I was not very stable.
No.
He says, man, you're messed up.
But you know what? A quick kind of injection here. A lot of things that she was doing were, I'm going to say, dysfunctional to a certain extent, but she was allowing her body to do it because other things were trying to take over.
I was compensating.
Right.
For, the deformity.
For the lack of stability and strength.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what Brent does. He actually looks at the individual rather than having a cookie cutter plan that he applies to everyone, which is why I wanted to have him on the show, because he's also working on a product that will be able to help people anywhere they're at in a customized way all around the world, which is really awesome. Yeah. So thank you, Brent, for being on the show. Everyone, you can go to booksbusinessandbeyond.com/Brent, Brent, to learn more about him. And thank you, Shelley, for being the most awesome co-host in the world for this episode. And come back next week, because we're going to have an amazing woman on who has coached hundreds of people in bettering their lives and also helped me reach 6 figures in my business. So you definitely want to hear that one.
Thank you again, Kristen and Shelley. I appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to Books, Business, and Beyond, the show that teaches you how to maximize your income from your book to create the lifestyle you want. Visit your host, Kristen the Book Ninja Eckstein, and her partner in success, Shelley Hitz, at booksbusinessandbeyond.com and grab your free gift today. Tune in next time for more ways to diversify your income beyond the book, and don't miss a single episode. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes.